The gallows on Varelia. The twin sons of Aurelius 7 bathed the fields in gold as the morning fog slowly lifted from the grasslands. Children laughed among the wheat stalks, chasing a homemade hover kite, unaware that the world around them had begun to darken. At the edge of the settlement, the first Imperial dropship landed. It blotted out the sun like an ill omen. The Galactic Empire had always considered humanity a minor species, aggressive, resilient, but ultimately insignificant in the grand design of the galaxy. When humanity began colonizing planets outside their solar system, the Empire tolerated it for a time. But as human settlements spread into the frontier systems, the Empire's patience wore thin. Trade routes were contested. Alien nobles complained of uncivilized settlers. The Empire declared these territories annexed, citing galactic law. Varelia 7, a quiet agricultural colony of 40,000 humans, became one of the first test cases for Imperial control. Imperial Governor-General Vexarin Dull arrived 2 months later. He was a proud Zeverine noble, his height enhanced by his ornate crest armor, his face unmoving beneath a carved bone mask. His arrival was marked by the confiscation of all human weapons and the immediate establishment of martial law. "Compliance will ensure your prosperity," he said during the first planetary address. "Defiance will not be tolerated." Most complied. They had no choice. Those who didn't, farmers, engineers, even children, began to disappear. 10-year-old Mira Thane watched as her older brother Jace was taken. He had been caught using a homemade radio, a forbidden relic left over from Earth's resistance broadcasts. He never returned. 2 days later, a dozen children, sons and daughters of known dissenters, were rounded up in the middle of the night. The Imperial officers didn't explain. They simply said the words "seditious lineage" and dragged them away under torchlight. The gallows were constructed in Varelia's central square, where the town hall once stood. It was made of dark alloy scaffolding, surgically welded by Imperial engineers. 10 nooses were hung from it, each with a placard beneath it bearing a child's name. Elian, Mira, Jove, Sana, Theo, Brielle, Kareem, Nora, Kian, Ada. Governor Dull addressed the crowd from a raised platform. His voice echoed through loudspeakers, smooth and unfeeling. "Let this be a lesson to all humans who dare resist Imperial law. The blood of rebels breeds rebellion. This ends here." Parents sobbed. Some collapsed. Others screamed. But the Imperial shock troopers stood unmoving, weapons drawn, ready to open fire if anyone rushed forward. The children were led out in single file, bound and barefoot. They did not cry. Not one. Mira met her mother's eyes. She smiled. Then the trapdoors opened. The footage was broadcast across 76 human colonies and outposts, an intended message of dominance. Instead, it ignited a supernova. On Earth, the United Human Council was in session when the broadcast played. Midway through their deliberation on food shortages in the Ceres Belt, the live feed hijacked the central holo display. The room fell silent as the hangings played out, raw and unedited. Some tried to cut the feed. Others whispered in horror. When the last child's body stopped twitching, silence reigned. President Talia Saren stood slowly, her face pale but resolved. "This," she said, "was not a military engagement. This was not war." She turned to the room, voice rising with fury. "This was butchery of children. Our children." An admiral rose. "We must call for sanctions." A general banged his fist. "No, we call for retaliation." President Saren looked out over the gathered leadership. Military, civilian, scientific. All were waiting for her decision. Then she spoke. "Let it be known across the stars. Humanity declares absolute war." In orbit over Mars, the military AI command node Aegis was activated. Dormant fleet groups received priority codes. Generals reawakened black files sealed since the last interstellar war. Battlecruisers previously scrapped were reconstructed within days. On Luna, a monument was carved within hours. 10 names, each etched in crystal, orbiting Earth's moon in a silent, eternal vigil. Across Earth's datanet, one image spread like wildfire, the gallows. Beneath it, in blood-red text, just 5 words. You hanged the wrong children. In the wreckage of Varelia, as Imperial patrols celebrated their pacification, a deep space message slipped through an encrypted quantum channel to Earth. It came from a surviving farmer, whispering beneath floorboards with a smuggled transmitter. They're killing us. Please, don't send diplomats. Send war. And war was exactly what humanity sent. The iron response. The first retaliation came 72 hours after the hangings. In the darkness beyond Alpha Centauri, where a dormant Terran battle group had slept beneath the ice crust of Helios. 5. The EHA's Revenant roared to life. Nuclear reactors hummed. War code was uploaded into the AI combat matrix. 10 massive warships, silent, black, and angular, began their journey toward Imperial space. Operation Burning Silence had begun. On Earth, the mood had changed. The United Human Council convened an emergency session. Debate was over. Votes were unnecessary. The footage of the 10 children had stripped away policy and hesitation. Humanity spoke with one voice. All diplomatic channels with the Galactic Empire are terminated, President Talia Saren declared. There will be no envoy, no offers, no surrender terms. They have shown us what they are. The response was immediate and total. Civilian factories were converted into war production centers overnight. Dormant orbital shipyards spun back to life, guided by AIs older than some nations. Recruits surged into enlistment centers, not for duty, but for revenge. Even pacifist nations, once hesitant to support a militarized Earth, now poured funding and ships into the unified Terran command. In the shadow of Earth's largest arcology, 10 giant banners hung from the towers, each bearing the face of a hanged child. Beneath them, the words "never again." The Empire, meanwhile, dismissed the execution backlash as emotional hysteria. Governor Vexarendul, the man who had ordered the hangings, gave a smug interview from his cruiser above Aurelia. They resist. We punish, he said. Their emotions are irrelevant. Their technology is obsolete. Their fire will burn out. It was the last broadcast he ever made. On the 6th day of the Iron Response, the Revenant Task Force reached the edge of the Varelian defensive sphere. Instead of broadcasting demands, they deployed kinetic kill rods, hyper-accelerated metal slugs the size of school buses, launched from beyond sensor range. The Empire's orbital stations shattered before alarms could be sounded. Vexarendul's cruiser was split cleanly in half. His body vaporized along with his command staff. Then the humans landed. The battle for Varelia's orbital command was surgical. No prisoners were taken. No civilians were harmed. Only Imperial soldiers died. By the end of the 2nd day, the planet's occupation was over. Humans didn't rebuild. They didn't recolonize. They recorded what had been done. Then they glassed the Gallows Square with a controlled fusion bomb and left a monument behind. 10 white spires surrounding a single phrase in dozens of languages. They were children. Elsewhere, the campaign escalated. Human forces launched precision strikes on worlds connected to the execution order, governors, high-ranking officers, and intelligence nodes. Dozens of Imperial leaders vanished in a single synchronized hour, targeted by Earth's assassination algorithm nemesis. On the slave world of Borin, where human and alien children labored in acid mines, orbital cannons flattened the entire processing center while elite shock troops liberated the survivors. Footage of the freed children embracing Terran Marines spread across the galactic net like wildfire. One girl, covered in soot and scars, was asked what her name was. She said Sanaa, the name of one of the executed. The reaction was seismic. In the Empire's core, panic began to ripple. Admirals demanded reinforcement. Noble families scrambled to evacuate children from outer colonies. The Imperial Council convened an emergency meeting. Humanity has declared a holy war, one general growled. We must crush them before this spreads. Another, more cautious, warned, we tried that before. We underestimated them. We call them animals. and now they come not as diplomats, but as executioners. Emperor Valascor, draped in ceremonial gold, remained still. They kill with precision, he said quietly, and they name their dead. Back on Earth, General Katia Rain, Supreme Commander of Terran forces, stood before the War Council. The footage of the executions replayed behind her on a translucent screen. She said nothing at first. Then, in a voice as cold as deep space, "We are not fighting for resources. We're not fighting for territory. We are fighting because we do not allow this. Ever. Anywhere. Again." She paused, letting the silence settle. "They taught us fear. We will teach them remembrance." Across the galaxy, the words absolute war echoed like a prophecy. Humanity did not come with flags or envoys. They came with black ships, cold algorithms, and a fury no empire had prepared for. And as the stars burned red with justice, 10 small names were whispered by soldiers, engineers, and colonists alike. They were no longer just children. They were the reason the galaxy would never be the same again. The Empire shatters. The Empire's arrogance had been its armor for 1,000 years. It cracked at Calyx 3. Calyx was not just another world. It was a symbol. Seat of the Zevri High Houses. Birthplace of Lord Vexerindul. Center of the Empire's cultural superiority complex. The nobles there threw lavish festivals after the executions on Varelia, boasting that human disobedience had been hanged into submission. They woke to sirens, screaming skies, and fire. Operation Scorch Protocol was humanity's message written in orbital fire. It began with complete disruption of Calyx's planetary grid. No power, no comms, no escape. Then the sky darkened as 6 Terran dreadnoughts arrived in silent formation. No warnings, no broadcast, no negotiations. Each ship deployed thermopulse orbital batteries, designed not for conquest, but for denial. In under 5 hours, the lush green world of Calyx 3 was turned into an uninhabitable furnace. Atmosphere destabilized. Oceans boiled. Cities reduced to ash glass. 11 billion citizens gone. No survivors. Earth's message, posted to the Galactic Network, was simple. You glorified the death of children. Now you share their silence. Across the Empire, panic overtook pride. The Galactic News Grid tried to hide the destruction of Calyx, calling it a terraforming accident. But images leaked, cities swallowed by firestorms, noble towers collapsing, entire sky lanes crumbling midair. The illusion shattered. High families fled their worlds. Military governors began defecting or requesting clemency. Imperial colonies abandoned the crest of the Golden Eagle and raised white flags, or in some cases, Terran ones. But not all bent the knee. The Praetorian Fleet, the Empire's most elite and feared naval force, was dispatched to end the Terran advance. Composed of 120 capital ships and over 300 support craft, they were the pride of Zartal Prime, the Emperor's personal hammer. They were met in the Dead Spiral Nebula by humanity's 3rd and 7th Assault Groups, under General Katia Rain's direct command. She didn't send a warning. She sent decoys. Dozens of fake distress signals lured the Praetorians into a carefully mapped gravity trap. Then, with precise timing, Terran ships emerged from phase fold, surrounding the fleet from above and below the orbital plane. The nebula's volatile gases were ignited by gravitic mines. Half the Praetorian force was incinerated before they could fire. The rest was cut apart by Terran gunships. Rain personally oversaw the last kill from her command ship, EHS Revenant. "Make sure they're gone," she ordered. "Don't leave any to crawl back and warn the throne." Within 2 hours, the most powerful armada in the galaxy was reduced to drifting debris. Meanwhile, Terran operatives embedded deep inside the Empire activated the second wave, the Uprising Protocol. On dozens of subjugated worlds, Volkesh, Orlon Beta, Halari Prime, human teams armed alien slaves with weapons, medical supplies, and encrypted comms. They didn't just fight the Empire. They liberated its victims. Entire species, long pressed under imperial boots, rose in armed rebellion. The Empire began to hemorrhage manpower and control. Civil war now burned from within. In a dark chamber beneath the imperial palace, the High Council gathered, silent and shaken. "These are not negotiations we face," whispered Grand Strategos Halvax. "This is extermination. We must retaliate in kind," another snarled. "Strike Earth itself. Show them they're not untouchable." But Emperor Valaskor did not speak immediately. He sat unmoving on his throne of silver bone, looking at the feed of Calyx's destruction looping before him. "This is not vengeance," he finally said. "This is judgment." A pause, and they are right. Back on Earth, General Rain addressed her commanders from her warship above liberated Varelia. The gallows had been erased. The square was now a sanctuary. "This isn't about conquest," she said. "We do not claim worlds. We do not rewrite cultures. We end tyranny. We end it with fire, and we leave only warning." She looked toward the stars. "And we are not finished." That same day, intercepted transmissions revealed the Empire's most unexpected move. A diplomatic probe was sent from Zartal Prime. It carried a formal surrender offer, reparations, territory, trials for those responsible. A desperate attempt to halt the tide. It was intercepted at the Sol System's edge. The message played once for President Talia Saren. She did not respond. She simply looked at General Rain and said, "Tell them." Rain turned to the probe's transmitter and recorded 5 words. "We are not here to talk." Then she added the last. "We are here to remember." The probe was destroyed. The war continued. 10 names in fire. The Imperial Palace stood like a crown of obsidian on Zartal Prime, once a monument to 1,000 years of domination, culture, and brutal power. Now it was a bunker. The Empire's heart no longer throbbed with strength. It palpitated with fear. From orbit, the first human dreadnoughts appeared, silhouettes like sword blades cutting through the stars. They didn't fire. Not yet. Instead, they projected holograms into the sky. 10 faces, 10 children. Their names burned across the atmosphere, visible for thousands of kilometers. Mira, Jace, Brielle, Kareem, Sanaa, Theo, Ada, Kian, Elian, Nora. Below, Imperial citizens fell to their knees, not in reverence, but in realization. Humanity had not come to conquer. They had come to end a legacy. In the war chamber beneath the palace, Emperor Valaskor removed his crown and placed it on the stone beside him. "The weight," he muttered, "was never the metal." Around him, ministers wept. Some begged him to surrender. Others called for one final attack. He listened to none. For the first time, the Emperor addressed the truth. "We hang their future. Now, they have come to hang our past." He dismissed his court. Alone, he walked to the ancient mosaic in the Hall of Conquest, a depiction of every species the Empire had subjugated. He stared at the corner left unfinished. Humanity. "They finished their own stories," he whispered. Then he gave the final command to open the gates. Human forces did not bomb Zartal Prime. They descended in silence. Black-clad infantry, AI tanks, orbital mechs. Yet none fired a shot unless attacked. They moved through cities as if through tombs, dismantling defensive systems, seizing documents, locating the architects of atrocities. It wasn't vengeance. It was judgment. General Katia Rain led the charge into the palace. She found no resistance, only corridors of gold and silence. She ascended the throne, stairs alone. Emperor Valaskor stood waiting. "I know what this is," he said. "You seek justice. Let be done." She looked at him, unreadable behind her HUD visor. "You don't get to decide what justice is," she replied. With a gesture, the Emperor knelt. He placed his head forward as if offering it. But Rain didn't draw a weapon. Instead, she turned and nodded. A child stepped forward. Sanaa, one of the rescued for Boren. 11 years old. Former slave. Now wrapped in a Terran cloak. She looked the Emperor in the eye. "You don't get to die fast," she said. Trials were broadcast across the galaxy. The Terran War Tribunal, held in orbit above neutral space, tried hundreds of Imperial officials. War crimes, genocide, child execution. Footage from Varelia played, at every session start. Some begged for mercy. Some claimed orders. None were spared. The sentences were swift. Not all ended in death, but all ended in disempowerment. The Empire's spine was cracked, its arms removed, its propaganda dismantled. In the ruins of the throne world, humans held a remembrance ceremony. 10 statues of crystal were raised in the former palace garden, each shaped like a child, each emitting a soft glow. Beneath them, the names were carved in Terran Standard and dozens of alien languages. An inscription read, "They were not soldiers. They were not threats. They were children. We were warned. We did not negotiate. We remembered. And we acted." President Talia, Saren herself, gave the eulogy. "Humanity has always known loss," she said. "But this war was not born from conquest. It was born from cruelty, and it ended not because we became like them, but because we refused to." Behind her, survivors from dozens of liberated worlds stood in silence. And so the war ended, not with a planetary detonation, but with a vow. Humanity returned to its colonies, not as conquerors, but as guardians. In place of shattered empires, they built sanctuaries. Where imperial statues once loomed, memorials now stood, etched not with pride, but with sorrow and warning. The Galactic Council, once silent during the hangings, was dissolved and reformed under new charter. Its first act, to ban execution of any civilian, of any species, for all time. The charter was signed using a stylus carved from the Varelian gallows beam. General Rain retired to a small moon near Alpha Centauri, never accepting promotion, never giving interviews. She left behind only one statement, sent to future military leaders. If you must fight, make sure you remember why. If you must burn worlds, count the names first. And if you ever forget the 10, you are no better than the empire we destroyed. Years later, children on Earth are taught the story not as a war of glory, but a war of grief. Schools hold remembrance days. On those days, the names are spoken aloud by children the same age as those who died. And in orbit around Luna, a monument still floats, 10 crystalline orbs orbiting silently, lit by the sun. The message etched inside each one: never again, by our hands or theirs.